Okay, very quick. Abridged version of the story of my descent into insanity happened 30 years ago. Imagine a scenario. Here's me, 19-year-old chronic fatigue sufferer, aware my entire life will be destroyed unless my diseases are gone. Hear about this thing called magic, they say it works. Interested, curious. Start going to these public meetings where these people meet. That's when I was first introduced to these people who are very strong, very passionate about the phrase magic works. Um, and then they would talk about all kinds of things that they did, and they claimed various different results from this, that, and the other. And I thought this was all rather interesting. And of course, they talked about various different books and different authors, all very exciting and all various new, different, exciting ideas. Ideas I'd never had heard people, human beings in the flesh, speaking about. And so I was swept up by this. I was swept up by the ideas, by the people's fashion and clothing. It was all very exciting at the time. But I was trying to study it. I was trying to listen, observe, trying to work this out. What are they talking about? What's really real here? What can be useful for my health? Because like each and every single second of the day, of every day, without fail, I'm in complete and utter misery with my health. I mean, and I mean complete misery with my health. We are talking about you don't want to go there, man. Right. It must have been very noticeable. Of course, now, later in life, it's also discovered I was also had some variety of autism or ADHD or something like that, which I'm still on the waiting list for. But there was me in this weakened state, surrounded by all these exciting people, exciting ideas, exciting language being used. I thought, I've got experience, I've got to find this out. I met this young guy who was just a couple of years older than me. And he invited me to his little group. That, I think, is when things started to go south. Real big time. Because then they got me. Not in a public space, in the meeting room in a public house and upstairs. It was a lovely pub, actually, very old, oak beams sort of added to the whole ambience of this sort of pagan environment, but I was now in someone's house. And I didn't realize, because I was a naive 19-year-old, that this was a very dangerous place to be. Not because I was, not necessarily specifically because of physical or sexual abuse, because that did not happen to me. But the psychological environment suddenly became much more claustrophobic. And you end up with one guy who's in charge telling all these other people things. And all these other people are essentially absorbing it, they're lapping it up. I'm not going to go into everything that was said, nor everything that was done, and I did a fair few sabbats and esbats with them. But I think it was because maybe the high priest started to realize that I was questioning things, and I was asking questions, and I was applying some, albeit primitive, reasoning to the ideas that was being presented to me. That maybe that they needed to control me more. And so I went to this guy's shop. I just wanted to buy some moonstone or something, because that's what I was doing at the time. And he met me. And he spent his time going on and on and on about, in a very charismatic evangelical style. Yes, a very charismatic evangelical style. About the weakness of Jesus, or the weakness of the Christ God, and that sort of thing, and the fact that his gods were so much more powerful because they were soaked in blood, that thousands of lives had been sacrificed to them, and therefore they were incredibly powerful. And if I didn't do what was right and follow the tradition, these powerful gods were going to somehow fuck with me. Remember that in his closed environment, in his little house, they were all saying magic works. It was just the phrase. So you got this environment of statements which say that everything that your high priest is saying is essentially the truth, which is the phrase magic works, really. You got your high priest being a charismatic evangelist. You've got aggressive nonsense being spoken. This stuff goes into you and it molds your emotions, thoughts, and feelings without your control. This is called techniques. Even when I left them, I still tried to do what this guy was essentially brainwashing me to do and try and bring people into the craft. But fortunately, I was drinking in a rather aggressive working class pub at the time, and they pointed out I was a fucking nutter. And I was doing it wrong, and I was inappropriate. And I suddenly realised that, yeah, these labourers in this pub, they're right. And that high priest was wrong. Very wrong. Very, very, very wrong. And that created a spiritual spasm inside me, I suppose. And I was unbelievably cringe, and I hated myself. I had actually gone mad, purely because someone used the phrase, magic works and it works. Once I had come to the clarity that this was actually a dangerous environment full of fucked up people who are doing fucked up things and saying fucked up things for monetary gain, psychological power, whatever it is, I pledged that I would never, never, never drive someone crazy through using the phrase magic works. And that is essentially what a lot of my channel is about. The genuine search for real magic without the phrase magic works. And I don't want to hear of anyone, under any circumstances, who is so glib with their language as to say, it works, or is so sadistic and sick in the head to say magic works. You may hate the Christians for their evil. But if you hate the Christians for their evil, you had better hate the pagans for their evil as well. Maybe the rest of my story will leach out in various different videos over the years in the future, or maybe it won't. But know this. I stand against anything in paganism, magic, occultism, witchcraft, chaos magic, and all the rest of it, Thelema, that says magic works. Just a few thoughts from Nick today.